the kiss that stopped time. "Don't move," Jimin whispered, his voice taut with something unspoken, urgent, trembling as his hand cradled Jungkook's jaw in front of 20,000 screaming fans. The stadium wasn't silent, not even close. Lights strobed across a sea of waving army bombs, fans screamed in cascading waves, and confetti spiraled in slow motion like falling snow. But in the heart of the chaos, on that massive, glowing stage, time fractured. Jimin leaned in and kissed Jungkook on the forehead. Not as a joke, not as fan service. It was slow, reverent. And the world broke open. Cameras clicked like machine guns. A second later, millions of livestream viewers gasped in sync across the globe. But the world only truly fell silent when Jimin straightened, pressed the mic to his lips, and said, calmly, devastatingly, "He was never just my brother." Then he walked off stage. Everything that followed was chaos. Fans screamed, not in excitement, but in stunned disbelief. Jungkook stood frozen, lips parted, his eyes glistening under the stage lights. The earpiece crackled with the confused voices of stage directors, but he didn't move. Couldn't. Backstage, Jimin paced alone in the shadows, one hand pressed against his sternum like trying to keep his heart from falling out. He could still taste Jungkook's skin, warm, soft, a little salty from sweat. The weight of what he'd done hadn't hit him. Not yet. This wasn't how he planned to tell the world. Hell, he hadn't planned anything at all. It had just happened. One second they were closing the final song of the encore, and the next, Jungkook had turned to him, smiling like the sun, thanking the crowd in his usual golden voice. And Jimin's heart had just split. He couldn't keep pretending anymore. Couldn't keep smiling while choking on everything unsaid. Their love, if that's what it was never supposed to see daylight. It lived in the half-spoken glances in rehearsal rooms, the brushes of fingers behind closed doors, the late-night texts deleted before dawn. It was shameful, beautiful, terrifying. And now the world knew. Jungkook found him later that night, in the rehearsal room where they used to practice their duets when no one else was watching. Jimin was sitting on the piano bench, fingers trembling over the ivory keys, playing the intro to a song they'd never released. One they wrote together but swore to bury. "Taehyung," Jungkook said, voice raw. Jimin didn't look up. "Don't. You kissed me. You let me." Silence. Jungkook crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to his knees before him. His hands found Jimin, pried them away from the keys. "Why now?" Jimin looked down at him finally. His eyes were bloodshot. His smile was paper-thin. "Because I couldn't breathe anymore." Jungkook stood, pulled him into a bone-crushing hug. "You've started a war." "I know. Do you regret it?" "I regret waiting so long." Outside, the media storm had already begun. Headlines with flashing gifs of the kiss, fan theories unraveling across every platform, op-eds debating whether it was a publicity stunt or an accidental confession. The company remained silent for now. Inside, in that dim room that smelled of sweat and old dreams, 2 hearts beat wildly against one another, surrounded by music that never got the chance to be heard. They didn't sleep that night. How could they? Jungkook's mind spun with dread and desire, guilt and freedom. He kept hearing Jimin's voice from the stage, kept replaying the words. "He was never just my brother." It was the truth, the terrifying, beautiful truth. In the morning, their manager called. He was furious. Sponsors were pulling out. Contracts were hanging by threads. Army was divided. The company needed a statement immediately. Jimin said he'd write one himself. Jungkook asked him, "Are we going to lie?" Jimin met his eyes with that same calm, destructive stillness from the night before. Not this time. Later that day, a post appeared on Weverse, signed by both of them. It didn't use the word love. It didn't need to. It spoke of honesty, of burdens carried too long, of the sanctity of truth. It ended simply, "We are human first. We hope you'll let us be." The backlash came hard. The praise came harder. Fan signs turned into battlegrounds. Old friends distanced themselves. But something else also happened. Messages flooded in from fans who had never felt seen until now, who thanked them, who cried for them. In the quiet hours, when the noise faded, Jimin would rest his head on Jungkook's shoulder and whisper, "If this is the end, I'm glad it's ours." Jungkook never replied with words. He'd just hold him tighter. And outside their window, the world kept spinning, faster than ever but still beneath the same sky. "You really think we can survive this?" Jungkook's voice was quiet, but it cut through the morning like shattered glass. They were holed up in a private studio in Hanam, blinds drawn tight against the sun, phones buzzing endlessly on the couch, ignored like ticking bombs. Jimin looked up from the laptop, where the draft of their public letter still glowed on the screen. "I think we already chose to survive it the moment I kissed you." "Then why do you look like you're about to throw up?" Jimin chuckled dryly. "Because I might." The air was thick with tension, too still for comfort. Outside, Seoul spun madly. News vans camped outside HYBE's headquarters. Online, hashtags trended in both directions. Protect Jungkook and disband BTS now. The fandom was cracking open like a fault line. Jungkook paced the room barefoot, his hoodie oversized and swallowing him whole. He ran a hand through his hair again and again until it stood on end. "They think we're manipulating them, using fan service to, what? Sell a record. There's no album coming, there's nothing to promote." "They're scared," Jimin murmured. "When idols act like gods, they feel safe. But when idols become human, it terrifies them." "And what are we then? Monsters or martyrs?" Jimin stared at him. "Neither, just two idiots in love who forgot the rules." Silence fell again, but not the peaceful kind. It was the silence before a verdict, a held breath before the guillotine dropped. Their manager called again. Jungkook ignored it. Later that afternoon, Yoongi barged into the studio uninvited, his face unreadable. "I had to climb through reporters to get here," he said without preamble. "You've started a war and didn't even tell us." Jimin looked away. "We didn't plan it." "That's the problem." Yoongi threw a folder on the table. "Do you know what this is? Brand withdrawals, 7. No, wait, make it 8. Gucci just pulled the plug too." Jungkook exhaled sharply. "So we're being punished for being honest." "You're being punished for being reckless," Yoongi snapped. "There's a difference." Jimin stood. "Would you rather we lied, kept pretending?" Laughed off the kiss like it was a fanservice gag, while I rot inside. "Don't twist this like I don't care," Yoongi shot back, eyes fierce. "But the world doesn't care about your pain, Jimin. They care about the illusion you broke." Jungkook stepped between them, his voice firm. "We'll fix it." "How?" Yoongi crossed his arms. "You want to hold hands in a press conference. Post a video essay titled, 'So We're Gay and Here's Why.'" Jimin's jaw tightened. "We don't owe the world an apology." "No," Yoongi said quietly. "But we owe the others a conversation. Namjoon is in damage control mode. Hobai's trying to stop fans from rioting. Jin's worried the military will drag both of you in just to shut people up. You didn't just out yourselves, you outed the whole band to hell." The words landed like stones. Yoongi left shortly after, slamming the door behind him. That night, Jungkook stared at the city lights from the window, the glow reflected in his dark eyes. Jimin sat on the floor, knees pulled to his chest, trembling. "Maybe he's right," Jimin whispered. Jungkook turned. "Do you regret it?" "I regret that it hurt them. I don't regret you." He crossed the room and knelt in front of him, his hands brushing against Jimin's trembling fingers. "We were already on fire. All I did was watch you strike the match." Jimin laughed, choked and broken. "What do we do now?" "We don't run. If this burns everything down, we stand in the ashes together." They kissed again, not soft, not innocent. It was desperate, clashing, fingers tugging at fabric, breath stolen between gasps. It was rage and grief and hunger and defiance. But afterward, lying in a tangle of limbs and apologies, Jimin whispered, "What if they make us choose? Career or each other?" Jungkook didn't hesitate. "I choose you." The following morning, HYBE demanded a meeting. The conference room was cold. Too many suits, too many lawyers. Namjoon sat at the end of the table, his expression unreadable. Hobai offered a faint nod when they entered. Jin looked like he hadn't slept. Taehyung didn't show up. An executive began. We're issuing a formal apology. You'll read it, word for word, in a video. No, Jimin said. The room fell silent. I'll resign before I lie to the world again. Jungkook reached for his hand under the table. Warm, steady. Namjoon leaned forward slowly. Do you understand what you're risking? Jimin looked at him. Yes, but I'd rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I'm not. There was a pause. Namjoon sighed, long and heavy. Then we fight with you, but you need to be ready. For what? Jungkook asked. Namjoon's gaze was grim. For everything. The tabloids, the sponsors, the government, the fans who think you betrayed them, the ones who will twist your love into a weapon. Once this starts, you can't take it back. I don't want to take it back, Jimin said softly. Namjoon nodded. And just like that, the battle lines were drawn. They held a press conference 3 days later. The room buzzed with tension. Cameras flashed like lightning storms. Jimin wore black. Jungkook's hand brushed against his once, twice, before holding it fully. The world watched. And this time, when Jimin stepped to the mic, he didn't stutter. I kissed the person I love. If that costs me everything, then so be it. But I will not apologize for telling the truth. The backlash was immediate. But so was the love. Millions rallied, some walked away, others screamed. But the ones who stayed, the ones who really saw them, stood taller than ever. That night, as Seoul simmered with headlines and protests and praise, Jungkook traced the curve of Jimin's spine in bed and whispered, We didn't break the world. We just cracked it open. Jimin smiled. Then let's see what grows from it. You knew this would happen, Taehyung said, his voice low and steady, the kind of calm that comes before a hurricane. But you didn't tell me. Jimin blinked, still halfway in costume, glitter smudged under his eyes like bruises. The dressing room was too quiet, too white, the mirror reflecting 3 people and 100 shattered things between them. I couldn't, Jimin replied, barely above a whisper. You didn't trust me, Taehyung continued, stepping forward, each word measured like a knife. You trusted the whole damn world with your truth before you trusted your brother. Jungkook tensed in the corner. This isn't about you. Isn't it? Taehyung snapped, his gaze burning. You think I'm mad about the kiss, about the headlines? No, I'm mad because you didn't look me in the eye and say, this is real and it's going to tear us apart. You let us walk into a battlefield blind. Jimin turned fully now, facing him. You think I wanted this to explode like that? I was breaking, Taehyung. I was suffocating. I didn't plan it, my heart just stopped asking for permission. Taehyung laughed bitterly. Right, so now the rest of us deal with the fallout of your heart. Then walk away, Jimin said, voice shaking. If it's too much, walk. Silence hit like a slap. Taehyung's jaw clenched, his eyes flickering with something old and raw. Betrayal, love, grief. You're my family, Jimin, he finally said, quieter now. You don't walk away from family, but God, you make it hard to stay. He left without another word. Jimin sank into the chair, head in his hands. The sound of the door clicking shut echoed in his chest like a gunshot. Jungkook crossed the room, kneeling beside him. I should have said something, I should have. No, Jimin cut in. This was always going to happen. The truth doesn't break people. It just shows you who's already broken. Later that night, the group stood on stage for the first time since the confession. The arena was packed, a sea of anticipation and uncertainty. No one knew what to expect. The intro music began. Every step felt like walking across glass. Namjoon's smile was too tight. Jin avoided their eyes. Hobai danced like nothing had changed, but his energy was fractured, frenetic. The song played. They performed like machines. Perfect, flawless, empty. Until halfway through the second verse, someone in the crowd screamed. A chant began, loud, rising, furious. Eliores, Eliores, Eliores. Jungkook faltered. His mic dipped. Jimin's eyes widened. Security moved fast, cameras redirected, staff scrambled to drown it out, but the damage was done. They finished the set barely. Bows were rushed, smiles were fake. Backstage, chaos waited. A bottle shattered in the dressing room. Jin swore for the first time in years. "We told you," he yelled, eyes gleaming. "This would get ugly, and it's only the beginning." "You think I don't know that?" Jimin shouted back, his voice cracking. "Do you think I haven't had nightmares about it every night?" Namjoon stepped between them. "Enough." "No," Jin said, pointing. "They think this is a love story, but this is a suicide note wrapped in a romance." Everyone froze. Jungkook stared at him. "You really think loving someone is the same as dying?" Jin's shoulders slumped. "No, but in this industry, it's damn close." Later, alone again, Jimin sat on the rooftop of the venue, legs swinging over the edge, the city spread out below like a map of consequences. Jungkook found him there, silent, watching the skyline. "They hate us," Jimin murmured. "Not all, but enough." "They hate what we represent," Jungkook corrected. "Truths they weren't ready for." Jimin turned to him. "What if we ruin BTS?" "You didn't ruin BTS," Jungkook said. "You saved yourself, that matters too." They sat in silence for a long time. And then Jimin asked, "Would you leave with me, if it all falls apart?" Jungkook didn't even blink. "Yes." The next morning, the scandal deepened. A leaked voice memo surfaced, an anonymous trainee alleging that HYBE had known about the relationship and covered it up. Accusations of favoritism, lies, manipulation. More brands pulled out. Fans raged online. And then the death threats came. The company hired extra security. The members were told to limit their public appearances. Jimin received a package containing a burned photo of him and Jungkook on stage, the kiss circled in red. HYBE advised them to lay low. Jimin was pulled from the next broadcast. Jungkook followed, refusing to appear without him. When the group filmed their next reality episode, the tension was suffocating. Laughter was forced. Conversations clipped. Everyone was waiting for something to snap. It did. During a cooking segment, Taehyung turned to the camera, smile razor-sharp. "It's not always love wins, you know. Sometimes love ruins everything." The producers cut the feed. But the clip leaked anyway. That night, Jimin cried, not quietly, not beautifully. He sobbed into Jungkook's shirt like a man unraveling. "I didn't want this," he choked. "Not like this." Jungkook held him like the world was ending. Then, "Let's burn it down and build something better." But what if there's nothing left? Then we start from each other. The next day, the press called it the biggest fracture in BTS history. Fans were split down the middle, but amidst the chaos, something strange happened. A letter appeared on social media. Handwritten, from a young fan in Busan, addressed to Jimin. It read, "You saved my life when I was too scared to be myself. If the world hates you now, I want you to know there's at least one girl out here who loves you exactly as you are. I'm not an army of millions, just one voice, but I hope it matters." Jimin stared at the letter for a long time, tears quietly falling. It did matter. So he picked up his phone, opened a new note, and began to write, not a statement, not a defense, but a truth no one had ever dared to say out loud. He would post it tomorrow, and nothing would ever be the same again. When Jimin pressed post, it was just past 3 in the morning. Jungkook was asleep, one arm draped over his waist, mouth slightly open, a rare moment of peace carved from the chaos. But Jimin couldn't sleep. Not when the words had been burning through his chest all night like a secret too big to stay buried. The note went live on Weverse. No photo, no emojis, no filter. Just words. "They told me to disappear. That love is beautiful only if it stays silent. That truth is only acceptable if it bends. But I'm done bending." The post was long, intimate, honest to the point of pain. He wrote about the industry's invisible chains, about sleepless nights spent crafting perfect smiles, about shame drilled into them from debut. He spoke not just of his love for Jungkook, but of the years spent hiding even from himself. He ended it simply. To anyone who has ever loved in secret, you are not alone anymore. Not if I have breath left in my body. The app crashed. Comments exploded by the millions. Fans sobbed. Others screamed. Articles were published within minutes. The note was translated into over 40 languages in under 2 hours. By the time Jungkook stirred and blinked awake, he found Jimin still sitting at the edge of the bed, phone in hand, pale with fear. "You did it," Jungkook said softly. Jimin nodded. "I did." "Are we still standing?" "I don't know," Jimin whispered, "but at least we're not hiding." Within the next 24 hours, Jimin's note became a global lightning strike. Politicians tweeted it. Celebrities reposted it. LGBTQ+ groups hailed it as historic, but not everyone celebrated. HYBE called an emergency meeting. Again. Jimin and Jungkook walked in hand. The CEO stood at the head of the table, surrounded by a battalion of legal staff, PR specialists, and managers with faces like tombstones. "We have sponsors threatening to sue, foreign markets pulling out, political tension in Japan. You think your love letter is worth that?" the CEO snapped. "It wasn't a letter," Jimin said calmly. "It was a lifeline." "You are an artist under contract," a lawyer chimed in. "This is defamation by negligence, emotional provocation. You've made it impossible to control the narrative." "Good," Jungkook cut in, "because the narrative was killing us." Namjoon sat silently at the far end of the table, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. When the shouting paused for air, he finally spoke. "You're asking if it's worth it," he said, voice low. "But maybe the better question is, who did we become while chasing silence?" The room fell still. "I hated it too, at first," Namjoon admitted. "Not the love, the exposure, the vulnerability, but I also remember what it's like to write lyrics that choke on lies, to edit out the real parts. That's not art, that's marketing." The CEO's voice turned cold. "So what do you want, Kim Namjoon?" "A choice," he replied. "For them, for all of us." When the meeting ended, there was no applause. No hugs, just decisions deferred. Threats hung in the air like smoke, but Jimin felt lighter than he had in years. Until that night. The company car pulled up to their shared apartment, only to find it vandalized. Graffiti sprayed across the front door. "Traitor. You ruined everything." Eggs, red paint, a slashed tire. Security pulled them back before they could even reach the door. Jimin stared at the words. His hands trembled, but not with fear. "I used to think love was something you protected behind closed doors," he said, eyes glinting. "Now I know it's something you protect out in the open." They didn't go home that night. They stayed at a hotel under an alias. But even there, Jimin couldn't sleep. The rage from the fans was one thing, but what ate at him most was the silence from someone else. Taehyung hadn't said a word since the dressing room incident. Jungkook noticed too. "You should call him." "He won't answer." "Then go to him." That night, Jimin stood outside Taehyung's building, hood pulled low, heart beating like thunder. He buzzed the intercom. No answer. Again, then finally. The door clicked open. Taehyung stood in the hallway barefoot, hair messy, expression unreadable. Neither of them spoke at first. Then, "You really set the world on fire, huh?" Taehyung said. "I didn't come here to defend myself," Jimin said, voice quiet. "I came to ask if I still have my best friend." Taehyung leaned against the wall. "I don't know." Jimin nodded slowly. "Fair." "You hurt me, Jimin." "I know." "I wasn't angry because you kissed him. I was angry because you left me behind. We started as 6 brothers, and suddenly it felt like you drew a line, and I wasn't on your side anymore." Jimin's voice cracked. "There is no side." "There is now, and you're not the only one bleeding." A long pause. Then Taehyung sighed and said softer, "But I read your note, twice." "And?" Taehyung looked up. It was the bravest thing I've ever seen you do. Jimin's eyes burned. Taehyung stepped forward and pulled him into a hug, tight and trembling. Don't shut me out again. If we fall together. The next week, everything changed again. BTS announced a hiatus, not a breakup, just space. A pause, but fans weren't stupid. They knew the storm had gotten too big. And in the middle of it, a bomb dropped. Dispatch released unauthorized photos. Jimin and Jungkook, kissing, holding hands in a dressing room, laughing in a parked car, a moment in the hotel shirtless. The captions were cruel. Jungkook romance or publicity stunt, the fall of BTS, lovers or liars. HYB was forced to respond. But this time, Jimin didn't wait for permission. He went live. No makeup, no lighting, just him raw with swollen eyes and a hoodie. I didn't ask for this to go public the way it did, he said. But now that it is, let me say it clearly. Yes, I love him. Yes, it's real. No, we're not ashamed. But what hurts most isn't the hate. It's the idea that love like this could only exist if it served an agenda. Like we're incapable of truth unless it's branded. He paused, voice breaking. We're not perfect, we're not fearless, but we're real. Millions watched, the chat exploded, the world divided. But as the feed ended, Jungkook stepped into frame, silent, and kissed Jimin on the cheek. It wasn't loud, it wasn't scandalous. But it was enough to shatter the lie that love needed approval to be legitimate. And across the world, thousands of fans turned off their screens with tears in their eyes, not of betrayal, but of recognition. Because for the first time, BTS wasn't just a band. They were a revolution. The morning after the live broadcast, Seoul felt different. Not quieter, never quiet, but tighter. As if the city itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what would break next. Every headline bore Jimin and Jungkook's names, their photos splashed across screens like wanted posters or war heroes, depending on who you asked. Inside their hotel suite, it was silent, not peaceful, just the kind of silence that wrapped around your throat and squeezed. They're calling for a boycott, Jungkook muttered, scrolling through his phone. Not just us, the whole group, even Taehyung. Jimin stood at the window, one hand pressed to the glass, watching the people below like they were part of a world he used to belong to. How many death threats today? Too many. He nodded, so it's Tuesday. Jungkook snorted, but it was hollow. The jokes were starting to sound like armor too thin to hold. The door burst open. Namjoon walked in without knocking, hair wild, a folder gripped in one hand like a weapon. We have a problem, he said, tossing it onto the table. Pages spilled out, printed emails, tabloid clippings, transcripts. They're trying to prove you violated morality clauses, Namjoon said sharply. They want to fine you, millions, possibly terminate your contracts entirely. Let them, Jimin replied. No, Namjoon stepped closer. Don't you dare fold now. You think walking away will make you a martyr. It won't. They'll spin it as guilt, proof you were manipulating fans. You leave and they rewrite your entire story. Jungkook leaned forward. So what, we fight in court. We fight with music, Namjoon said. With truth, with whatever the hell is still ours. Jimin laughed bitterly. What music? Every track we recorded is being shelved. Every appearance been cancelled. Namjoon smiled, but it was the kind of smile wolves make before a kill. Then write something they can't ignore. That night they went to Yoongi's studio. No managers, no PR, just them, the hum of equipment, the bitter smell of instant coffee, and the ghosts of every song they'd never dared to release. You're really doing this? Yoongi asked as he adjusted his headphones. Jimin met his eyes. No filters, no metaphors. If I bleed in melody. Yoongi turned to Jungkook. You ready to be hated harder? I've been hated before. I've never been free. They recorded for 7 hours without a break. Lyrics poured like confessions, raw, explicit, furious, beautiful. No veils, no safe metaphors, just love, pain, defiance. The truths they'd once written in invisible ink were now sharp, ink black, and permanent. At one point, Jungkook stood in the booth, chest heaving, eyes burning, and sang a line that silenced everyone in the room. "You wanted me pure, silent, caged, but I was never yours to tame." The track would never be approved. It would never see a sanctioned release. So they leaked it. Midnight, no fanfare, no teaser. Just a link. And the internet exploded. Within 10 minutes, the song was everywhere. Millions listened. Most were stunned. Many wept. Others screamed betrayal, heresy, obscenity, but no one was silent. It was a riot in melody. HYBE issued a statement within hours. Unauthorized content, breach of protocol, disciplinary action pending. Jimin posted a reply. Truth doesn't need authorization. That week, all 7 members were summoned to the boardroom. It was cold, clinical. The CEO looked at them like they were strangers. He gestured to the documents spread across the polished table, termination clauses, lawsuits, NDAs. "We built you," he said flatly, "and we can destroy you." Namjoon stood. "No," he said. "You built a product, we became a family." "Then you should have protected your family from disgrace," the CEO snapped. Jin rose next. "You want to erase Jimin and Jungkook, fine, but you erase all of us with them." One by one, they stood. Hobi, Yoongi, Taehyung, Namjoon, Jin. All silent. Then Jungkook. Then Jimin. "We walk together," Namjoon said, "or not at all." The silence in the boardroom cracked like glass. The CEO didn't argue. He didn't need to. He just said, "Then you're done." Outside, the press swarmed. Microphones, flashing bulbs, screaming voices demanding statements, confessions, apologies. The members walked past them without a word. And somewhere in the chaos, a voice called out, "You ruined everything." Jimin paused, turned, and saw a girl, young, furious, crying. "You were supposed to be perfect," she screamed. "You were supposed to be safe." Jimin stepped toward her slowly. "I'm sorry," he said gently, "but I'd rather be real than safe." He handed her a flower someone had dropped. Their eyes met. Her lips trembled. And then she nodded. That night the world knew. BTS was over. At least, as the world had known them. But inside a dim studio, lit only by old stage lights and years of memories, they gathered again. No suits, no stylists, no cameras. Just them. And Jimin, sitting at the piano, hands shaking, asked softly, "Now what?" Jungkook leaned beside him. "Now we rebuild, on our terms." He kissed Jimin's shoulder. And for the first time in a long time, it wasn't followed by fear. Just music. It was raining the day. They left the building for good. Jimin stood under the awning of HYBE's headquarters, suitcase in one hand, the other gripping Jungkook's fingers like a lifeline. Raindrops streamed down the sleek black glass of the building, washing away the last glimmer of glamour, leaving only cold reflections behind. The company had already sent out the press release. "BTS mutually parts ways with HYBE. We wish them the best." A sterile ending to a story that had never been sterile to begin with. Across the street, hundreds of fans were gathered in silence, holding signs that swayed with the wind. Some cried, others looked stunned. A few shouted slurs. One threw a bottle that shattered near Jungkook's feet. Security swarmed. Jungkook didn't flinch. Jimin, though, turned his gaze straight toward the crowd and raised the mic in his hand. The one he'd stolen from the inside, the one from their debut stage. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, soaked in pain and rain. Then he said, "You don't have to understand, but you should know we were never saints, just boys who sang so you'd feel less alone." A pause, a breath. "We tried to be everything for everyone, until we forgot how to be ourselves." They left without another word. Back at the studio, now empty, stripped of sponsorship banners and their platinum plaques boxed up and removed, they sat on the dusty floor, surrounded by silence and disbelief. "This is real, right?" Jungkook asked, his voice like glass breaking. Jimin nodded. "Too real." Taehyung paced the room, a cigarette burning between his fingers, even though they hadn't smoked indoors in years. We really just walked away from the empire. Yoongi sat beside the window, his back against the frame. Maybe it was already burning. We just stopped pretending we didn't smell the smoke. Jin stared at his hands. What happens now? We rebuild, Namjoon said again, echoing Jungkook's words from before. But not as idols. Then what? Hobai asked. Rebels, outcasts, punchlines. No, Jimin said, a faint fire in his chest. Humans, artists, lovers. But the world wasn't ready to let them go quietly. The first lawsuit came 2 days later, from an advertising company demanding compensation for breach of image morality. Then came the smear campaigns, anonymous insiders leaking half-truths and manipulated audio clips. A scandalous rumor about Jungkook being caught with another man in a hotel bathroom surfaced, accompanied by blurry photos. People wanted blood. And love, once celebrated in every BTS song, was now the noose around their necks. You should release a statement, one of the last remaining PR contacts urged them. Deny the rumors, distance yourselves from each other again. The market will forgive you if you pretend. Jungkook laughed in her face. I'd rather eat glass. Jimin didn't laugh. He stared at her with something close to pity. Is that all you think love is? A rumor we can deny. They didn't post a statement. Instead, they posted a demo. A raw, aching track titled, We Are Not Saints. It wasn't polished. It wasn't radio ready. It started with the sound of Jungkook crying, real, unscripted, before he said into the mic, I'm tired of being a prayer for people who would burn me alive. Then came Jimin's voice, low and broken. I kissed him to save myself. I stayed because he saved me back. The beat was rough, almost violent, layered with distortion and static and unresolved chords. The chorus hit like a scream. You wanted gods, but we were only boys. You wanted purity, but we were drowning in noise. You wanted silence, but we bled in sound. You wanted forever, but you never stuck around. It went viral in under an hour. Not on mainstream charts, but underground, queer spaces, anti-idol forums, activist playlists. Students marched with the lyrics scrawled across their jackets. Street artists spray-painted We Are Not Saints on subway walls in Tokyo, London, Buenos Aires. But for every candle lit in their name, someone else threw gasoline. A conservative politician went live on television, holding a burned BTS album, saying, This is what happens when you let idols poison our youth with perversion. Jimin watched the clip in silence, then turned it off. I thought the music would protect us, Jungkook said that night, lying beside him, eyes on the ceiling. No, Jimin murmured. The music is the weapon, we protect each other. Still, the weight was getting heavier. One night, Jimin broke down in the bathroom, vomiting from anxiety until he collapsed against the tub. Jungkook found him and sat on the cold tiles, cradling his head. Let's run away, Jimin whispered, eyes swollen. Not metaphorically, really, just go, disappear. To where? Somewhere with no names, no cameras, just wind and sky. Jungkook kissed his temple. You'd miss the stage. I'd miss you more. They didn't run. But they did vanish for a while. No social media, no updates, no releases. For 3 months, the world spun rumors. Until one night, a live stream appeared. Private, invite only, hidden behind a paywall not run by HYBE or any label. A single camera. A stage dimly lit. 7 figures stepped into frame. No logos, no backing dancers, just mics and shadows. Jimin stepped forward. This isn't a comeback, he said. This is a beginning. Then Jungkook began to sing. His voice was raw, weary, glorious. They performed for 2 hours. Old songs reimagined, new songs unfinished. No choreography, just presence, just pain and beauty side by side. The final song was called If They Burn Us. And the last lyric, sung together, all 7 voices trembling, was, If they burn us, let it light the way for someone else. The screen went black. There was no encore. Only a heartbeat. And then silence. The silence after the final note felt sacred. It wasn't emptiness, but something whole, something finished. Outside, the world kept spinning. Headlines still flared like dying stars. The industry whispered of lawsuits and contract breaches. Some stations banned their music outright. Others played it twice as loud. But within that silence, after the live stream ended, something had already shifted. Not just in the fans, but in them. Jimin sat alone on a rooftop days later, sunrise blooming slowly across Seoul. He held a small recorder in his palm, playing back a message Jungkook had left him the night before. I don't know what we are to the world anymore, but to me, you're still the boy who smiled at me during our first dance practice and made my knees weak. That never changed. Jimin smiled, wiping his tears with the sleeve of an old hoodie. A wind passed, warm and soft, brushing through his hair like a memory. The rest of the members had gathered downstairs for what they called the last breakfast. Not because they were breaking up, but because they were finally letting go. Of what they were expected to be. Of the shape others demanded they fit into. Taehyung had brought champagne. Yoongi brought silence and a rare smile. Hobi played old songs from his phone, while Jin made eggs like it was 2014 again. Namjoon didn't say much, just observed them all like someone watching the last flickers of a constellation that had defined his sky. Jungkook pulled Jimin into the kitchen with a grin. You're late. Vhyung almost started a toast without you. I had to say goodbye, Jimin murmured, pressing his forehead to Jungkook's for a second. To someone I used to be. They sat together, all 7 of them, around a table too small for their history. And when the toast came, Namjoon raised his glass and said, to the light we left behind. No, Jimin said softly, to the light we became. The others nodded. And drank. In the months that followed, they didn't disappear, they just changed. Jimin and Jungkook moved to Jeju for a while. Quiet days, ocean walks, occasional studio sessions done for joy, not charts. They released an album independently, no label, no sponsors, just them. The cover was a photo of their clasped hands, and the title was Breath. It debuted at #1 on underground charts in over 20 countries. Not because it was viral, but because it was true. Taehyung opened a small art gallery. Yoongi began mentoring queer artists in Seoul's underground scene. Jin, after returning from military service, opened a nonprofit for idle mental health. Namjoon disappeared into the countryside to write his book. Hobi started a podcast titled Unfiltered, where artists spoke without fear. BTS, as the world had known them, was gone. But something purer remained. Not idols. Not saints. Just men. Brothers. And in quiet corners of the world, bedrooms, train rides, lonely offices, people still listened to their final songs, whispered their lyrics like prayers. Because long after the fame faded, long after the lights dimmed, the story of the kiss, the rebellion, the love that dared to speak, remained. Not as controversy, but as legacy. As proof that even in an industry built on masks, someone, someday, had dared to take theirs off and still sing. And that truth, sung not in harmony but in courage, was louder than any lie ever could be.